Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the top headlines. Yemen's Houthi rebels free 11 mariners held since the July attack on the ship Eternity Sea in the Red Sea. Oman confirms it has received the crew members, among whom are nationals from India and the Philippines. The operational meltdown of India's Indigo air carrier stretches into a third day, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. Over 100 flights have been cancelled today alone, as India's civil aviation regulator holds crisis talks with Indigo officials. Sri Lanka renews its landslide alert for regions worst hit by Cyclone Ditwa. Forecasters warn of heavy rainfall in the coming days as the death toll from flooding edges closer to 500. Bangladesh's critically ill former Prime Minister Khalida Zia is set to be flown to Britain for medical treatments, according to her doctor. Her Bangladesh Nationalist Party remains a frontrunner in the elections promised to be held in February 2026. And the European Union opens an antitrust investigation into Facebook parent company Meta. The probe will examine whether the company's AI-powered WhatsApp features violates the bloc's competition rules. We begin today with the latest from India. A short while from now, Russian President Vladimir Putin will land in New Delhi for his two-day state visit. This will be his first trip to India in 4 years, and it comes for the 23rd India-Russia annual summit at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Indian leader will host President Putin for a private dinner this evening, a gesture mirroring the courtesy Putin extended during Prime Minister Modi's visit to Moscow last year. Now, before taking off for India, President Putin outlined his priority areas for Moscow's engagement with New Delhi. He said the focus now is on upgrading cooperation and on expanding Russian imports of Indian goods to balance trade.
We aim to elevate cooperation with the People's Republic of China and the Republic of India to a qualitatively new level by strengthening its technological component. This is the objective of numerous joint projects in energy, industry, space, agriculture, and other sectors. We will also discuss these topics in detail during the upcoming visit to India with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, including increasing imports of Indian goods to our market.
This visit is also timed with a major milestone in the relationship between New Delhi and Moscow. India and Russia are marking 25 years of their strategic partnership, established in the year 2000 and upgraded in 2010 to a special and privileged status. Tomorrow, the official engagements begin early. The Russian leader will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at Rashtrapati Bhavan, followed by a meeting with Indian President Droupadi Murmu. He will then visit Raj Ghat to pay homage at Mahatma Gandhi's memorial. After that, Putin and Prime Minister Modi will sit down for the main summit. Talks are expected to cover energy trade, defence procurement, nuclear cooperation, space collaboration, and a rupee-ruble payment pathway. Defence will be a major focus area as well. The two sides are expected to discuss ongoing platforms, including the S-400 air defence system, the same system that during India's Operation Sindoor directed, tracked and shot down multiple Pakistani projectiles, with New Delhi securing critical air power dominance in the region. Next comes the possible cooperation on the S-500, the successor of the S-400, and conversations around the Sukhoi 57 fifth-generation fighter jet. Trade is another big topic, especially the imbalance. India-Russia trade stands at around $69 billion, but nearly 92% of that is Russian exports to India. New Delhi is expected to push for steps that increase Russian imports of Indian goods to help balance the trade basket. The Russian leadership has already emphasized that it's ready to address India's concerns over the trade deficit. Energy and technology will also feature prominently. Technological partnerships in space, agriculture, manufacturing and industrial projects are expected to be reviewed. with an emphasis on boosting joint projects. There are some key public-facing events on Putin's schedule as well. The Russian president will attend a state banquet at Rashtrapati Bhavan, hosted by President Droupadi Murmu. In the next 48 hours, New Delhi and Moscow will cover a wide slate of issues, renew core commitments, expand into new sectors, and underline 25 years of a strategic partnership that remains steady and consequential. Now, for more on this, we have with us Ben Aris, founder and editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews. He's also the former Moscow bureau chief for the Daily Telegraph. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Ben, I first want to look at your opinion on how significant this Putin visit to India truly is, especially amid geopolitical uncertainties.
Well, the geopolitical uncertainty continues to get worse, and this is the latest in a string of visits. If you remember, Modi was in Moscow, I think it was last summer, where they had a similar extremely busy agenda where they covered much of the same topics: energy deals, fertilizer deals, security, weapons supplies. And it's a warm relationship that's getting deeper. That, you know, there's a mutual interest in both of them, and the geopolitical situation, the East-West clash that's going on, is only catalyzing the relationships between them. I mean, India and Russia have had warm relationships since the time of the Soviet Union, but now Putin, by invading Ukraine, has definitively broken off his relationships with the West. It used to be, you know, the bulk of Russian trade, particularly as energy, oil exports went to Europe, and that's stopped abruptly. And in the space of only 4 months, Russia reorientated all of its oil exports from the West to the East, Asia, largely India and China. And that's worked very well. And it's been a huge windfall, particularly for India, because not only does it now have plentiful supply of oil, but because of the tension that Russia's selling it at discount to the market price of up to $20. And as a result, you know, India has copious supplies of very cheap energy, which only improves its competitiveness. So the two of them have a deep interest in cooperating. And on top of that, there's been the development of the BRICS, and that's now given a political dimension to this relationship. It's no longer just trade.
Yes, absolutely. And Ben, defence is expected to dominate the India-Russia summit. How crucial is Russia for India's long-term defence and technology strategy? And what signals should we expect from the discussions?
Well, again, everyone runs Russia down from being like a petrol station dressed up as a country. But actually, technologically, it doesn't do microchips and it doesn't do supercomputers, but it does do military tech, and it does it very well. I mean, the Sukhoi 57, fifth generation airplane, is as good as anything that the Americans have had. Indeed, it's probably better than the F-35s, which it's in competition with. And so for India, with its security problems on the northern border between China and both Pakistan, that Russia is a key ally here. And Russia has long delivered arms to India, but now things like the air defense, the S-400s and 500s that you mentioned, are absolutely crucial and showed themselves the value of them in the short war with Pakistan. And so Modi's looking to secure his northern border with supplies of these missiles. Of course, Russia's struggling to supply them at the moment because it's fighting its own war in Ukraine, and it kind of needs as much weapons as it can get. But the Russian economy now is on full war footing, and it's now producing a surplus, particularly of missiles. And so this arms deals, they're more glue to bind the relationship more tightly. And that Russia then is not only an economic partner, but it's a major partner in security. And for its part, Russia, as it's a BRICS member, has good relations with India, it has good relations with China, and so that also helps. On the one hand, it can supply weapons, but on the other hand, it intermediates in the relationships, and that was on display when Modi decided to go and attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in China a few months ago, where he was standing there shoulder to shoulder with Xi Jinping, with Putin, with numerous other emerging market leaders. Is a new club emerges, but it's still young. I mean, there's still lots of rough edges, and I think Putin sees himself as a key sort of, how do you say, friend to all, partner you can trust in the middle of all these relationships. And this meeting only further fuels that impression and further deepens the ties with Modi and India, which will also be useful in the development of the whole BRICS organization.
Yes, and Ben, I do want to pivot back to trade as we end this discussion, but specifically look at this trade imbalance. Putin has said that he does want to increase imports of Indian goods, but how realistic is that shift in practical terms? And does Moscow have the capacity or the incentives to now genuinely rebalance that trade with India?
It's more than an imbalance. It's a deep structural problem in so much as the trade deficit was $40 billion. It's up to now 60, 70, and it's still going up. And the problem is that India doesn't produce enough goods that Russia wants to buy. And that leaves Russia with a huge problem with a huge pile of rupees that it can't spend. And because the rupee is not fully convertible, it can't even change them into dollars. So the interesting thing is that Putin's arriving with a couple of planes full of Russia's top business people. And apparently the Kremlin was inundated with requests by Russian companies to be on this trip. But specifically, it chose those companies which the Indians were asking to see. And what's going to happen now is to undo that deficit, that India needs to produce more goods that it can sell to Russia. And the way they're going to do that is invite Russian companies into India to set up and invest and produce in India, which will also get past all of the non-tariff trade barriers if it's Russian joint ventures in India. And it also means you can usefully tap that pile of rupees because you can use them to pay for the investment in India. So that is a big change. That goes beyond sort of temporary trade relations. That's a deep structural investment partnership which will last for decades. And it's a very good idea. But of course, it's going to take years for all this stuff to come online and actually impact the trade deficit. But like I say, I mean, this meeting in that sense, the CEO summit that's going to be tomorrow, is the key event where a ton of deals are going to be done and money's going to be thrown at new factories. And it's going to start producing better quality goods, which is great for India's industrial development as well, and also technology transfer, good Russian tech, non-military coming into the country. So it's a win-win all round. The problem is this structurally huge deficit, $60 billion, that needs to be undone. And it's going to take several years to solve that problem.
Yes, absolutely. Discussions on trade, of course, or on defence as well expected. All eyes will be on Putin in India over the next couple of days. Ben Aris, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing insights. Moving on to our next story. What happens when an immigration pathway, which applicants spend years preparing for, suddenly adds new checks at every step? This is what seems to be happening for the H-1B hopefuls. This application process now has fresh surprises and deeper scrutiny. The United States is rolling out a new set of restrictions. US officials have said that beginning December 15th, the State Department will widen its review to assess the online presence of all H-1B applicants and their dependents. So now, it's not just students and exchange visitors whose social media accounts are under scrutiny. H-1B applicants, their dependents on H-4, F, M and J visas must also have their social media profiles accessible to the public to ease the US immigration assessment. The Trump administration repeated that visa vetting is fundamentally a national security decision, and consular officers must use every possible source, including online activity, to determine whether an applicant poses a risk or intends to misuse the visa privilege. According to reports, an internal cable issued by the US State Department on December the 2nd directs American consular officers at embassies worldwide to tighten their vetting of H-1B applicants, especially those in technology and digital content roles. Officers have been instructed to examine the resumes and LinkedIn profiles of applicants and their dependents. The US immigration officials must assess an applicant's past work connected to misinformation, disinformation, content moderation, fact-checking, compliance, and online safety functions. So, what does it mean? Essentially, the US wants to know if an applicant ever worked in a job where they controlled what people can say online. If officers find that an applicant has taken part in blocking or removing legally protected speech in the United States, they can now mark that person as ineligible for the visa. This is not the first time the issue of free speech has surfaced in US visa policy. In May, Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that the US could impose visa bans on individuals involved in censoring speech by Americans. This latest policy rejig comes shortly after a National Guard member was killed in an ambush near the White House on November the 26th, an incident that prompted Trump to vow tougher restrictions on entry from quote-unquote third world countries. It also follows the $100,000 H-1B application fee introduced in September, a move that added a steep financial barrier for employers. These new steps carry significant implications for India. About two-thirds of H-1B applicants in recent years have been Indian nationals, working in the tech sector. As Washington prepares to enforce the new rules on December the 15th, H-1B applicants are left bracing for more demanding checks, more documentation, and far less predictability. What was once a competitive work visa route now seems to have become a process marked by surprise hurdles at every single turn. Moving on, Pakistan is caught in a deepening power struggle between its most powerful general and its most famous jailed politician. Former Prime Minister Imran Khan, speaking through a social media post from prison, has accused Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir of pushing the country towards instability. In his latest message, Khan described Munir's security approach as disastrous. He claimed the Army Chief deliberately raised tensions with Afghanistan and said drone strikes and the expulsion of Afghan refugees have fueled a new wave of militancy. Khan also accused Munir of positioning himself to appeal to Western powers, censors an allegation the military has not responded to. This political message comes at a time when the balance of power in Pakistan has formally shifted. Last month, the country approved its 27th constitutional amendment. The amendment creates a Chief of Defence Forces, a post now held by Asim Munir, and provides lifetime legal immunity to all five-star generals. Alongside that, a federal constitutional court is being formed. It will absorb some jurisdiction previously held by the Supreme Court, marking a significant redrawing of institutional authority. Critics say it consolidates military power. Khan's comments also follow a rare family meeting at a Rawalpindi prison. After weeks of protests and spiralling concerns about Khan's well-being, his sister was allowed in after a month with special government approval. The former Prime Minister claims he has been kept in isolation for 4 weeks. He says access to lawyers and party colleagues has been restricted despite court directions. He also accused authorities of mishandling family members who tried to visit him. There has been no official response to these allegations. It's worth noting that Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party is in power only in Pakistan, one Pakistani state, and that's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, a province bordering Afghanistan. In his message, Khan warned Islamabad against imposing governor's rule in the province, calling it a move that will provoke a strong reaction from his supporters. For now, the army has remained publicly silent on Khan's statements, but the larger reality is unchanged. A jailed former prime minister, an empowered army chief under a new constitutional order, and a political landscape rearranged by law, security, and power calculations. For our final story, let's turn to Iran. Iran's economy is facing one of its sharpest declines in years, with the country's troubled currency hitting a record low. On Wednesday, the rial has slipped to about 1.2 million to the US dollar, a level that is now squeezing household budgets and pushing essential costs even higher for millions of Iranians. And the impact is clear. Food costs are surging, with meat, rice and basic supplies now far more expensive. Ordinary Iranians say daily life is getting harder as they struggle to afford staples that were once within reach. Many fear that the government, cut off from foreign currency, may even struggle to maintain critical infrastructure in the months ahead. As a result, Iranians are rushing towards what they call value-preserving assets. That's gold, dollars, silver, diamonds and even cryptocurrencies, which are in high demand, with traders reporting unprecedented sales. Many families are dumping their savings into gold bars, coins or hard currency as a hedge against the collapsing rial. This week, Iran hit a new milestone as the price of a single gold coin surpassed 1.2 billion rials for the first time ever. Gold coins crossed the $1,000 mark, and 1 kilogram of silver nearly weighs in at $2,000. Iran's economy has been dealing with deep damage from global sanctions, most notably after the United States, under Donald Trump, unilaterally pulled out of the 2015 nuclear agreement in 2018. When Trump returned to office in 2025 and reinstated his maximum pressure strategy against Iran, Iran came under severe sanctions, including targeting companies involved in Iranian crude oil exports, even those selling at discounted prices to buyers like countries like China. And in late September, the United Nations, using its snapback mechanism, reinstated nuclear-related sanctions on Iran. These reinstated measures, freezing Iranian assets held overseas, ban arms deals with Iran, and penalise any development of its ballistic missile capabilities, among other restrictions. At the same time, regional tensions are adding to public anxiety. After June's 12-day clash between Iran and Israel, many worry that another round of conflict could erupt, further straining a country already in economic distress. Many are also drawing comparisons to the panic of the Iran-Iraq War and the 1979 revolution, when Iranians carried whatever they could as they fled their homes. With ATMs empty and businesses closing, portable wealth is seen as the only security blanket. Earlier in November, US President Donald Trump confirmed that Tehran has been asking whether the United States would lift its sanctions on Iran. Sanctions that have been a major driver behind Iran's collapsing currency and severe economic pain, adding that he would be open to it.
And frankly, Iran has been asking if the sanctions could be lifted. Iran has got very heavy U.S. sanctions, and it makes it really hard for them to do what they'd like to be able to do. And I'm open to hearing that, and we'll see what happens, but I would be open to it. But we did take the sanctions off Syria.
But now Iran stands at a critical moment, as pressure from sanctions, renewed regional uncertainty, and currency plunging at a devastating rate. For millions, the question now is how much more their economy can absorb before it can no longer. That is all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thanks for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on